Okay, so how to practice wise speech and bringing speech to power and abuses in our world. And what does that mean? It's a practice. First of all, wise speech is one of the Noble Eightfold Path factors, and it is a practice that we're constantly looking at to see what works and what doesn't work. What doesn't work usually is not speaking up to abuses of power, to not making, something known when somebody's being harmed. Yeah. So I wanted to start about where does speech come from, right? When we think about it, break it down from a Buddhist perspective, looking at the 5 aggregates of clinging. All of our conditioning, everything that we've learned from the past, our thoughts and our experiences form our perceptions, right? So whatever is happening this moment and the next moment and the next moment, we have all these filters from our past conditioning that have us perceive things the way that we think that they are. Yeah. This practice is about practicing seeing things clearly as they are without any filters. But it's pretty hard to do that because our filters are just automatic, right? So things can happen and we can perceive them happening a certain way, and then somebody else can be in the same room and perceive something totally different because their filters and their conditioning is different than ours, right? So this perception that we have that's colored by, it helps us form our views, how we see the world, how we approach the world, how we see human beings and one another. And then based on our views and how we perceive things, our perceptions, then we're drawn to particular people. We're drawn to particular, maybe religious organizations or, class of people or whatever it is that we're drawn to. Then we start to surround ourselves with like-minded people who have the same perceptions as ours, who will validate us for our perceptions. So our perceptions tend to get more locked into, hardwired into us because our family conditions us with our perceptions, our society conditions us with our perceptions, and then we hang out with people that, promote our perceptions. And so then we start to cling to our perceptions and think that they're the truth. Yeah. And then we meet other people who have totally different perceptions and they think their perception is the truth. And we're like, whoa, you are so off. You are way off. But really, a perception is a construction. It's not the truth. The truth is what we can perceive through our 5 senses and factually be able to say, I heard this, these specific words were spoken, there was a frown, furrowed forehead, the person was holding some kind of wand thing. These are actual facts of what happened. If we can watch a video play over and we can look and study each and every thing that happened, everything that was said to the facts, and then our perceptions are based on those facts, then we know that they're not, that our construction is close to the facts. Yeah, as close to the facts as possible. Yeah, so if we perceive things to be harmful, then we, based on our conditioning and our past, we have certain habits of how we approach harmful things, right? So how many people here would say that you tend to hide under a rock and avoid when something harmful is going on? Is that your initial tendency? How many people are more into confronting things head on as soon as they happen? Probably. Okay, you guys are sitting next to each other too. Right? And other people, we might avoid through gossiping, through complaining, through denying. There's a lot of denial in our world about harm that's being perpetuated. We can get angry and attack. So we have certain patterns of how we perceive things, first of all, and then how we respond to perceptions of harm that we want to be mindful of. We want to be aware of our patterns. If we perceive things to be helpful or beautiful, we have patterns as well. We might, helpful, beautiful, or even neutral, we may do nothing, we may avoid, we may ignore, we may grasp, cling to, try to save, try to beautify, and run around and enroll everybody into coming to Vipassana and meditation retreats, maybe. So we want to look at our perceptions, because from our perceptions spring our intentions, right? We have our perceptions, and then we have an intention. The intention is to seek or to ignore or to confront, right? And then from our intention comes what? Our speech, right? Yeah. But before speech, one word utters from your mouth, there's all these other things that happen first that most people are unconscious to, they're unaware of. And then they just go around automatically blabbing what they usually blab out of anger or fear or confusion. But we don't want to just blab out anything from anger, fear, or confusion. We're trying to be as aware as possible, as clear as possible with our speech. So we want to continually check our perceptions at the door. Are they based on facts? Proven facts, things that we can, know for sure to some degree, 99.9. I guess we can't be 100%. Yeah. So this ethical division of wise speech, it's also called right speech. All the ethical practices, according to the Buddha, have two parts. Right? The first part is restraining immoral actions. In other words, avoid causing harm through our own actions, right? The second part is to promote wholesome conduct. Promote wholesome conduct, which means to do good. So we're trying to promote wholesome conduct, create more harmony in the world, and we're trying to not feed into all the harm that's already being caused through our actions or speech, especially our speech. So the purpose of this meditation practice, Vipassana, seeing things clearly, that's what it stands for. We're practicing seeing our experience clearly each and every moment, right? So how do we approach this? It's called, I'd say this over and over again, that our practice is considered a mental purification process. The Buddha called our meditation mental purification. So what does that mean? So let's say that we were a scientist and there's a new type of harmful bacteria that are killing people, right? And we happen to be an expert in creating antibiotics and bacteria and everything. What are we going to do, right? If I was I don't know much about science, but if I did, I would think that I would study this new bacteria. I would want to learn all of its different components, all of its different behaviors. I'd want to study it under different conditions to see what environments it thrives in and what environments it dies in, right? What harms this bacteria? Where is it coming from? So I'm going to try to study its origin and everything. Then I'm going to go about weakening it, right? By creating an environment that weakens it and also strengthening the immune system. Yeah? So give it some kind of antibiotic to kill it, and then do something to strengthen the immune system too, so that it can combat it as well. We do the same thing with our practice. Yeah? We are looking through our mind and our experience to see what kind of unwholesome habit patterns we have. Ways of thinking, behaving, speaking that strengthen and develop wholesome states of mind and being. and weakening the ones that are unwholesome or create more strife for ourselves or others. Does that make sense? So we want to develop the positive character traits conducive to awakening, that lead to harmony, that lead to joy, that lead to beauty, that lead to peace within ourselves and others. So we are manifesting and or cultivating this inner harmony, and then we want to bring this inner harmony out into the world, which is hard to do because there's a lot of not so inner harmony going on in the world. There's a lot of inner strife that's being projected onto the world and harming people and harming the earth too, by the way. But we're doing an insight practice. We're developing insight. We're developing this wisdom. We're developing this loving kindness within ourselves so that we can bring it forth to the world and call truth to power, call truth to stop seeing someone else suffering. So wise speech, Sama Vacha in Buddhism, it's avoiding unwise speech and practicing wise speech. The Buddha he described the human mind as like a bunch of drunken monkeys, the untrained human mind. And they're screeching, chattering, crying on endlessly, jumping around like drunken monkeys. And so that's what we're taming through our meditation practice. Yeah. And I talk a lot about the Rahula Sutta, where the Buddha told his son instructions on how to be a good person before you perform a verbal act, to reflect on it beforehand. Is this going to lead to suffering, this verbal act, or is it going to lead to self-affliction of myself or others, painful consequences, painful results? If so, don't speak it, right? But if this verbal action is going to lead to more harmony and to reduce pain in myself or others, then go ahead and speak it. So he went on to say, while you're performing the verbal act, check in again. Is this verbal act I'm performing now causing more disharmony, or is it leading to more harmony? And then after you speak or act, check. Did my speech or action just help, promote wholesome states or unwholesome? That's a lot of practice. Yeah. I think that wise speech is quite an interesting practice, especially when we feel harmed or we feel that someone else is being harmed. This is where our practice really, the rubber meets the road. There's a story about the Buddha, one of his suttas, where a king came to him and wanted to learn how to meditate. So he was teaching him how to meditate, and he asked him, what is your intention for meditating? And he knew many kings, because there were many kings at that time who had different territories. And the Buddha was considered one of the wisest, spiritual leaders at the time. So he said, he came one day and he's complaining about his subjects, that they want to steal from me, that they don't, they're warring all the time, factions, and a lot of them aren't paying their taxes like they're supposed to be, and he was really angry at his people, and he didn't know quite how to control them. So he went to the Buddha and asked how he could get a handle on his people, his subjects. And the Buddha was asking him a bunch of questions. Are your taxes fair? He said, what do you mean? They have to pay taxes. He says, when the people, after they pay taxes, do they have enough money left over to feed their families and themselves? Are you generous with the land that you're giving to people? Are you giving them the land commiserate to the effort and actions that, so are people being rewarded for hard work? He was asking all these questions, and then the guy got really quiet. He said, if you're not being fair to people, and if you're harming people and you're taking more than you deserve from them, you're not rewarding them for their hard work, then they're going to start stealing from you. they're going to start gossiping and trying to turn against you. They're going to form factions to try to hurt you in some way. But if they're happy and they're productive and they're rewarded and they're living a good life, you're going to have truly people that are going to love you. Your subjects are going to love you. Yeah. So he pretty much told this guy, get your act together. You're hurting people. This is why people don't, are fighting you. So he was practicing wise speech to power and abuse, right? The king could have easily killed him for saying those things. He could have been off with your, who the heck do you think you are talking to me, the big king, this way? But the Buddha was willing to say what was true. But he didn't have to say what was true. He asked him all of these questions. And then he told him, this is why people are doing this to you, because of your actions. Yeah? So the Buddha's instructions on wise speech: abstain from false speech or exaggeration. Was the Buddha lying at all in his questions and what he said to the king? Nope. Right? In fact, he could have, a lot of people came to him complaining about how they can't make ends meet, how, so he could have brought a lot of people that came forward to talk about their difficult life. So we're trying to abstain from false speech or lying. That includes exaggeration. I don't know about you, but I come from an exaggerating family where if there was this much water in a bucket and it was really heavy to carry, I'd be like, there was this much water in the bucket. Even the bucket's not even that big. You know what I mean? This is my family. We're very dramatic, so to speak. So I've had to really work hard on being clear in my speech and not exaggerating. And I'm not exaggerating about my family exaggerating. Right? So why is exaggeration a problem? There's an intention to deceive in there. It's extremely dangerous to your spiritual development if you have any, it's a poison, the intention to deceive. The Buddha, in another Rahula, his son story, he said, see this little bit of water in this bowl, Rahula? And Rahula said, sure. And he took the bowl and he threw the water out. And he said, that's your spiritual development. That was the water in this bowl. And anytime you tell a deliberate lie, you've immediately thrown all your water out of the bowl. Yeah. So he said, one should not lie, even in jest. Yeah. So why is untrue speech so dangerous? How many of us know there's so much fake news right now? There's people can believe any facts that they want to. They can choose what facts that they want to believe. And that this can really harm, that this untrue speech and untrue news can be used to harm one another. It hurts ourselves, it hurts others, and it's not related to the truth, right? If I want to deal with the problem, I have to deal with the truth of the problem, not with my manufactured thought of the problem. How can I deal with something that's not even real or true? I can't. Yeah. So we want to be honest, satcha, truth. Abstaining from divisive, slanderous speech is the second one. Divisive, slanderous speech. Divisive speech is meant to alienate one person from another, meant to alienate one group from another. The root of divisive speech is hatred, anger, and aversion, which is another one of the poisons of the mind. And there's so many reasons why we might do that. I see in this political arena that we have, the desire to control is the main reason for divisive speech. It could be resentment, jealousy, success, intention to harm one another, to gain favor. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on. Some people actually enjoy watching other people suffer, which is sadistic, but yeah. The last one is to abstain from harsh speech. Harsh speech. I saw a bumper sticker more that said, "Wag more, bark less." Yeah. So harsh speech is also spoken usually in anger with the intention to cause whomever hears it pain or to try to manipulate or control. It's very damaging to relationships. So it could be abusive, judgmental, scolding speech. It could be insulting, putting somebody down, reducing their dignity. We saw a lot of that, we've seen a lot of that, a lot of tweets too. Sarcasm, using a tone of twisting in order to do little passive aggressive, insinuated, backhanded insults. So we want to not engage in those kind of speech when we're calling truth to power, to not engage in harsh speech, dishonest speech, insulting or sarcasm. And the fourth thing the Buddha taught was to abstain from idle chatter, pointless talk, nothing of value. Gossip is included in this, right? The Buddha said to not engage in idle chatter because it's restlessness. It creates restlessness in the mind. Yeah? Garbage speak. Anyhow, so sometimes the wise response is saying nothing. I lead a lot of groups at the Addiction Recovery Center, and sometimes people are being real wise asses and causing problems. And I will often just turn like this and go, and they'll say, "What?" And I said, "You have my full attention." No, okay, all right. I don't have to say anything, just bring my full attention to it. And other times it's speaking truth. But the Buddha, there's all kinds of timing and what is it? The Sufis, they have the doorways they say that you want to go through before you speak to check, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it said with a heart of loving kindness? Is it spoken at the right time? Yeah. If so, then you may speak. But we don't always have we don't always have the time to speak. Yeah. I was years ago, I was at a party in a hotel going to some gathering party or something, and I heard screaming and banging noise and walked over, like it sounded terrible. And my husband at the time and I walked through this door to see this guy was beating the daylights out of this girl. Was I supposed to just walk away from that? No, I was like, get your hands off of her. I mean, of course, he could have killed me. And we were like telling him, we're going to call the police. This is before cell phones. You better stop. And then next thing I know, the guy was threatening my husband. And then she jumped on my husband's back and started trying to beat him up. She started defending the crazy guy. And then I was like, okay, you're both nuts. See you later. Yeah. But how do we handle this, right? The first thing we want to do is examine our perceptions to make sure they're rooted in facts. Are they accurate? Examine your words and intention. Examine your intention then. Perception, examine your intention. And then if they're rooted in facts and seem pretty clear, then go ahead and speak whatever you want to speak. But another thing that can be helpful is to examine the other person's perceptions too, because their perceptions are totally different. Yeah. If I'm just trying to beat, one of my siblings came over, another state, and was going to, this was 2019, I think, was going to vote for a different person and was angry at me for how I was going to vote. And I was saying, are you kidding me? How could you even fathom, wanting to vote that way? So we got into trying to beat each other up with judging one another. We got angry. It didn't work very well. So then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. He's like a highly degreed individual. He's been very successful in life. Worked as an upper, management of Intel. I'm like, let me see if I can understand his perception. So I got curious and I said, so what is it about, this political party that you like? So then I started finding out that he believed in trickle-down economics, and he believed that government is too big and that it's abusive and it needs to be smaller. So I found out what he valued and what he believed. And so then I was like, well, actually, I just took all these college master's level classes on these things, and I can tell you that what economics is teaching now is that trickle-down, actually, there's no evidence that it actually works. So then I was trying to educate him on, why my perception is different, because my facts are different. Do you know what I mean? So we came to an understanding that we don't agree. But we weren't angry at each other anymore. And I said, well, my facts, and my education is different from yours, so let's agree to disagree. So that's the fourth step. The fifth step: set your boundary or make your request. Yeah, set your boundary or make your request, or just speak truth to power. This isn't okay with me. Yeah, you may not speak to that person that way around me. Yeah, I had a friend, do you remember Carl that can come to the coffee shop, Wallace? The older gentleman, he died, sweetheart, but he had a lot of biases and prejudices and very conditioned in, white mainstream society. He was a stockbroker, very rich fellow. But I brought my good friend with me. He's asking her, oh, where do you live? Who do you live with? She said, I live with my wife, so-and-so. And he went, and he was like, okay, I'm done. He walked away. I'm done. That's too much for me.
What was that story again?
I brought my friend,
Yeah.
and he was asking her, where do you live? Oh, who do you live with? She said, my wife.
Oh,
She said, I live with my wife.
same sex couple.
Yes, same-sex couple. Thank you,
I
Tom.
wasn't sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. Anyhow, he said, that's it, I'm done. And he walked away. It was so rude. And I said to him, I'm so sorry. He had a lot of admirable qualities, except for certain things. He was just... So then the next time I saw him, I said, you embarrassed me the way you treated my friend. And do not ever do that again. I mean, I don't know what your problem is with different groups of people. You need to check that you need to look at that. But that's your business, but don't ever do it to one of my friends again. Do you understand? He was like, I didn't mean to, I just have a really hard time with those kinds of people. And I said, well, you want to go to the pearly gates of heaven? Because he talked about heaven all the time. I said, I don't know if they're going to let you in with that attitude. Is that not speaking truth to power? I love you, but you may not act that way. Yeah, so that's on a small level, but how do we do it on a government level? We vote, we call our congressman or senator, if we see something happening, we march for groups of people that we admire and want to protect. If we have the opportunity, we speak up in groups that, in a loving way, with clarity as to what we stand for, what our vision is, what our requests are, what our needs are. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you for listening. I didn't bring a poem. So let's open it up to the group. Usually we start in the physical room first and open it up to the Zoom room. This is all, like I said, it's a practice, it's aspirational. We're going to fall and fail miserably at times, and that's okay. It's not perfection. So any questions about anything that I've said or comments about how you practice wise speech, especially